That's what my mentor told me too. He's like, no one's going to care what it looks like. As long as you have value in the message that you're trying to deliver, that's what's going to capture people's attention. And he's like, you just have the natural ability to have people lean in when you're talking. He's like, so don't lose your confidence in that. And he is like, eventually you're going to attract the right people who are going to want to invest in you and help you along your way too. So like one of the funny stories I have, Jay Call was like, what kind of camera are you using when you're recording this? And I'm like, my laptop camera. And he goes, that's the only camera you're using? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, what's your address? So I gave him my address. He sent me a webcam to put on my computer because he's like, you need to hook that up and call me when you're doing it. So I feel like if you're working to be better 1% every day, so like today, what's my goal for tomorrow to be 1% better than what I was today? I think you start to build whatever skill set that you have.
Welcome to the Industrial Strength Marketing Show. Hey, I'm James Soto. It's been a while. I'm back. This is the show that is focused on helping manufacturers, distributors, and industrial services companies across the supply chain be better marketers and sellers of their industrial products and services. I am so happy to have my good friend and fellow creator, Meaghan Ziemba.
Hi, James.
Here with me today.
I'm super excited. Thanks for having me. I know.
We're here. We're talking.
It's awesome. I love Nashville.
So we are in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah. What do you think about Nashville so far?
I'm loving it. I might move here.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like considering it. It's such a great
So we
great
can hang
time.
out a lot if
yeah,
that happens.
We can,
okay. Well, we'll have more talk about that. But I just thought since you were visiting Industrial HQ here in Nashville that we would talk about what we've been talking about. And I just think that from our conversations and just getting to know you since IMTS Plus Creators Lounge at the show this fall, that you've been sharing lots of stories. Mm-hmm. And it just struck me that a lot of folks in manufacturing, like they're just, they're talking about the right things. They're talking about what we care about, our next generation workforce. But I think you're someone that doesn't just talk about these things, you're actually doing these things and you have causes and passion. So for our audience that's watching or that if you're listening, Meaghan is very much a great person. She does so much, but I think she would be better to introduce herself. So if you can just like introduce yourselves formally to the Industrial Strength Marketing audience and like let us just start getting to know you.
Yeah, so I'm actually a tech writer by trade. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee with a bachelor's and a master's in professional and technical writing. And I sort of just fell into it by accident when I was in high school. My mom pressured me into going to college because that was the thing that made someone successful. She didn't like the fact that I wanted to take a year off and travel the world and try to find my passion that way. So when she pressured me into going to college. I started out at the University of Minnesota. I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter at a very young age. Her father at the time was not prepared to be a dad, so I had to kind of figure out my life story at a very young age. So I moved back to Wisconsin, had a conversation with a former classmate of mine. She told me about professional and technical writing, and one of the very first projects I had to do was write an instruction list on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I just fell in love with how words can be interpreted differently across industries, across cultures, across genders. And you really need to be careful how you're using words in a technical environment because it can be catastrophic if you're not doing it the right way. So I ended up getting a first job at a trade publication where I got introduced into the storytelling of things, which was really fun. And I was able to crack the hard shells of a lot of engineers because most of them are very antisocial and not really, verbal when it comes to sharing their passion. So it was really great to build those relationships and gain their trust to allow me to tell their stories. And I tried leaving at one point to go into higher education, which was not for me. It was really boring. So I had to answer my calling again, and I got into the marketing departments of several different companies. I worked for an additive manufacturing company. I worked for a bearing company. I also worked for a chemical etching company. And that passion that drives, people to manufacture and design products that help change people's lives, it's the same across the board. Like these are designers that really want to make a change in the world. And I just was so addicted to that. And so now I'm doing Mavens in manufacturing. I started that about 2 years ago because during COVID, I noticed a lot of conversations happening on LinkedIn. Most of them were men in the industry, and they weren't including some of the women that I met during my trade publication days. So I decided that, screw it. I'm going to make my own microphone for women. And it's just kind of grown and developed from there. And now I'm doing a lot of work trying to connect with my local community as well as other communities to get kids more involved in these conversations as well, too, because I feel like there's a disconnect with what is actually happening in engineering and manufacturing and what kids are being shown and taught in their school districts.
Yeah, and that's the issue out there. We're trying to build a pipeline of manufacturing, change perceptions of manufacturing, engage people at a very young age, because that's really the opportunity right around, especially like middle school years, I would imagine, that we've seen, especially working on Manufacturing Day and things like that. So you have such an interesting story, and even starting as like a technical writer, you're already starting to having to write about it. Like we talk about things, we write about things, and now that you've launched Mavens of manufacturing, you're filling the gap to like tell these stories. So you're writing and doing.
Yeah.
And so so everyone mostly sees you as Meaghan, Ziemba, because you say Ziemba, I think, right?
Yep, it's Ziemba.
To make it Ziemba, but it's Ziemba, which sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's actually my dad pronounces it Ziemba, but I don't like how that sounds, so I decided not to do that. But it's actually Ziemba it's a Polish root. So I guess it was Ziembaski way back in the day. But
I just think it's awesome, no matter how you put it.
Yeah.
It's good. So I think you should go with what works.
It's a very strong, last name. I'm very proud of it.
I'm like Soto, if you like Spanish or de Soto, of Soto. So I just Soto. But when in Puerto Rico, I say Soto.
Yeah.
So you just, when you go to Poland, maybe you'll work on that.
Ziemba.
Yeah, it's a Ziemba Soto thing.
Yeah.
So we'll work it out. So we had a chance to spend some time not just talking about things at IMTS, but we were really pulling together lots of creators and leaders and people so that can tell their manufacturing story.
Yeah.
And as we were bringing people together to tell their story, we were just amazed to find how many people are actually doing things like ACE and others to like get the workforce going. You had quite good experiences, and I would imagine creating Mavens of manufacturing. Help everybody understand that journey and maybe some of the things that you were doing and getting your voice out there that led to things like IRL, in real life, you were doing. So think about that journey and wouldn't mind sharing like what's been the Mavens of manufacturing journey, and what are those things that you've actually been out in market, not just talking about, but helping change?
Yeah, so I am really nosy. So I just have a natural knack to ask people a lot of questions. My husband kind of tells me I can get too nosy with people, and he's like, you have to have a filter when you ask certain questions. But I'm like, no, if they don't want to answer, they can just say I'm not answering that because it's none of your business. But I've always wanted to stay connected with people that I've learned something really important from, because I like to be a connector. So some of the things that I'm doing is I hear all these conversations on LinkedIn and happening in this sector, but I notice that not a lot of people are actually talking to students themselves or reaching out to them, or if they're in the room, they're kind of talking at them and not with them. So they're not really asking them questions about what their passions are, or following up with them, or offering any kind of resources for them. This is just through my observation. I'm sure there are places that do that, but I like to use my network, and when I meet a student, ask them, okay, what are you passionate about? What do you want to learn about? What are you curious about? What like place do you want to go? Where do you want to travel? And I try to go through my entire network and think, okay, this person, and this person would be a really good connection for this student. And hopefully they can start building that relationship on their own and develop sort of like a mentorship thing. So I'm really cognizant of who I'm talking to and making mental notes and making sure that I'm connecting them to as many people as possible, because it can be very intimidating when you're in school and people are like, you have to have your whole life figured out when you graduate. I know for sure I didn't have my whole life figured out. So I just want to be able to provide some assurance to these kids that it's okay if you don't know what you want to do as soon as you graduate. Like, you have time. Like, life is a journey. Make sure you're enjoying it, but here's some resources to help you along the way. I'm also getting more comfortable speaking in front of big audiences. So I'm naturally an introvert. I don't like hanging out with a lot of people. And my husband's like, I just don't 100% believe that. But I always used to be the shy kid in the background. And I really know that this is an important mission, so I had to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So now I'm putting myself in situations where a couple weeks, or it was last week, I was at the Eastern University of Michigan, and I talked to 500 girls for this Digital Divas event. And it was extremely intimidating, but it was so fun because a lot of the girls came up to me and they said, "Thank you for inspiring me today." And that's like one thing that I want to continue doing. I'm starting to travel more, so I'm getting out of my comfort zone and going to different events and having conversations, not just with manufacturers, but attendees, keynote speakers. I'm making sure that I'm still learning as well and connecting myself, so that even if I need a resource for like a paper that I'm writing, then I can connect that to the research that I'm doing. And then I'm also, scouting for new guests for Mavens. One of the things that I am working on is an event in May, hopefully, where I'm going to have 400 people from the community I grew up in attending like a manufacturing summit where all of the local manufacturers are going to come. They're going to have a table. They're going to showcase what their products and services are. I'm hoping to get a couple manufacturers that are not in the community, like maybe a robotics company or something, to bring in like a cobot. And I'm going to connect the community to what advanced manufacturing looks like today. Because back in the early 2000s, late 90s, when, the sector took a crash, it really did some damage to the community members from where I'm from. They don't think manufacturing is a place that their kids can be successful in.
They took big hits,
yeah.
right? Like they took real big hits.
Yeah. So they're really hesitant and encouraging their kids, go be a welder or go get in construction or, do something with robotics. They don't want to have them pursue that career pathway because they don't necessarily know what it is and how much it pays off. And it's just intimidating for them. So I really want to help re-educate them on, yes, there's still the dirty, dark, dangerous stuff, but there's also these really cool opportunities where you can program robots, you can program a CNC machining thing, and you can do robotics, like you can do PLC programming. There's more women actually getting into welding. There's more women actually going into construction. So things are becoming more diverse, and I'm starting to see more companies actually share what their wages are too. So that's helping get equal pay.
It's great to see because it's actually a great wage. Manufacturing is a great bridge to the middle class. People don't realize how much of manufacturing opportunities can help bridge you to the middle class. And you're out there getting the message. So you're doing the Digital Divas. You're really focusing on, hey, let me talk to you about industry. Let's get together, girls. And they're talking to you about being inspired.
Yeah.
You're looking at holding events to get the community re-engaged with advanced manufacturing. And I think another thing you're mentioning, because as our audience is a lot of industrial marketers or leaders are trying to grow their business, but they can't grow their business because they got the work, but not the workers.
Right.
So we have to address the skilled labor gap, and we have to address our pipeline, and we have to address how do we reintroduce or honestly just introduce people to manufacturing for the first time. And I think it's just can't be understated, the power of just how many communities actually had someone bring a cobot in. How can that just be a mind shift? Because we have the internet, we can see things, But to see it in real life is so much different, especially if they understand the story about what that can mean, so that science fiction comes to life.
Yeah.
And that engineering has been described as it's the practice of making things that never existed before.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it is technology. You look at any cool device you have, it's manufactured.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you're doing. You're just taking your words and you're putting them into action. And I think it's going to be, a great journey for you. So as we, think about our audience out there, they're really struggling with these issues, and they're figuring, how do they, everyone wants to sell their service. They want to build their brands, but they really want to also establish who they are and what they believe. And do they reflect who we are as a country? Do they reflect who we are in terms of our values? And, can we meet people where they are, online, offline, wherever, whenever, however they may be looking? So when you really think about your journey in social media, where do you see the opportunities for folks that are brands that are, yes, trying to address these things, but they're also trying to build their brands and grow their business? Because you're building a brand in yourself and in Mavens of Manufacturing. Share a little bit about your social media journey. What did it take to kind of get into it? How did you feel?
Yeah.
And then and help folks understand kind of the journey of becoming a creator. Because I believe every manufacturer has to become a creator or inspire or support someone or work with someone in that regard. So what was your journey like, and how did you break through to even put yourself out there?
Yeah, so I had a really good mentor who told me I was ridiculous for being afraid to even start a video cast, because I knew nothing about video creation. I know very little about it still to this day. Like, you have a team here, obviously, that rocks it out, and they're really good at video editing. I have worked with video teams before in the past, but I've never really done like the editing portion of it. I've done a lot of like script writing in terms of like what I was going to say in front of the camera, but to actually live stream something and have like overlays and things like that, I really had to dig in and do a lot of research on what platforms were available. So I use Canva to help create some of my graphics and overlays. It's really simple, and it makes people like myself who are not graphic designers seem like they know what they're talking about a little bit. So I use that. I also use StreamYard for my video stuff because it actually automatically uploads the episodes without having to do too much editing to it right away when the interview's done. So I don't have to worry about going back, editing it, then uploading it. It just, everything's there available. What I'm currently working on is trying to readjust what my show notes look like. And I have to catch up with my podcast stuff. So I'm not an audio editor, so I need to do some research into where I can look. But there's companies like Fiverr where you can go on and they have different freelancers from around the world. So you can get someone here in the United States, you can get someone in Asia or Europe. You can really research and see who's going to be the best fit for what you're looking for at that moment. And it doesn't cost an arm and a leg for them to do the work. So whether it's audio editing, show notes, graphic design, they have a ton of talent on that platform that you can go through and actually get some information for. In terms of like what platforms you want to use, it really just depends where your audience is. So I know a lot of manufacturers have these ideas of like, okay, this is what we want to do and this is what we need to do. But a lot of them, from my experience, have a really hard time writing out their goals and their objectives. So you really need to hammer in what your goals and objectives are for that year and then figure out, okay, where is our audience? If you're looking into workforce development, a lot of kids are on Snapchat and TikTok. They're not really on Facebook or LinkedIn. More kids are starting to get on LinkedIn, but they're seniors in high school or they're just entering college. Another place that my daughter is on is Instagram. So she was on there really like every day when she first got her cell phone. Then she kind of took a break and then went to Snapchat. But now she's back at Instagram because she takes a lot of pictures and they do a lot of video reels. So I think each social platform has their like best feature that you can do. And you just have to figure out, is that the audience that I'm trying to reach? And if yes, okay, what's your strategy on how you're going to be posting content? So I am on LinkedIn the majority of the time just because that's the people that I'm trying to reach. I just started TikTok. I'm not very good at it, but I'm practicing.
It's actually pretty good.
I'm practicing and getting better, but I feel like Jay Call nailed it. He gave me the advice. He's like, you have to start out posting every day. Because if you don't post every day, not everyone's going to see you. So the first 2 years, I followed his advice, and that's really where I was trying to build up my following. So I was sending out connection requests. I was writing personal notes to people. And after about a year and a half, it really started picking up, and people were like, hey, can you come talk here? Can you come talk here? So make sure you're posting every single day on one of those platforms so that you can start building up your following base and your awareness. And then, experiment with some other places. I know Pinterest is really good with some product information. I didn't think that would be a place for manufacturers, but it's actually a really good
it's
place.
Yep.
So, just do your research, figure out a strategy, develop the calendar, and, just be consistent on what you're doing and be vulnerable, be yourself. Don't try to be, all professional, because not everybody likes all of the professionalism. They want to see you at your most vulnerable. They want to see your authenticity. They don't want to have a straight edge all the time.
Exactly. It's we've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
We don't need more of it.
It gets pretty boring. So don't be boring.
And I think what you're saying too, Meaghan, is that, one, you just got into it and you started with talking about the technology. Like, I just use Canva. Like, so even now, you don't have the technical debt of having to have all this technology, all these things around you, because it does slow you down. You're outpacing so many other creators, but you're just using the basic tools. You're just getting the content out there. And it's not about your lower third. It's not about the look and feel. It's about the message you have, the people. It's really all the hard work's getting the guests and the interviews and all of that work. And then you're also saying hey, have a strategy. Know what you're trying to communicate, and in terms of your pillars, you what is the message you're out there about. And then the third, you're just talking about what your mom said to you when you were a kid. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
And you're just being yourself. And so here you are, 90 plus episodes recorded in.
Yeah.
You've been sticking with it for a year, playing the ground game with that consistency, kind of the fourth point. And that, here we are sitting, we're not debating on how great the graphics are or the production value is. It's really about the content you and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's a journey.
That's what my mentor told me too. He's like, no one's going to care what it looks like. As long as you have value in the message that you're trying to deliver, that's what's going to capture people's attention. And he's like, you just have the natural ability to have people lean in when you're talking. He's like, so don't lose your confidence in that. And he is like, eventually you're going to attract the right people who are going to want to invest in you and help you along your way too. So one of the funny stories I have, Jay Call was like, what kind of camera are you using when you're recording this? And I'm like, my laptop camera. And he goes, that's the only camera you're using? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, what's your address? I gave him my address. He sent me a webcam to put on my computer because he's like, you need to hook that up and call me when you're doing it. So I feel like if you're working to be better 1% every day, so today, what's my goal for tomorrow to be 1% better than what I was today? I think you start to build, your whatever skill set that you have. So, and you can never fail that way either. So
and it's like Kaizen, how do you take, what's that one small step you can take to be better? So Kaizen is exactly that's actually one of our second core differentiator. We focus on what's the one small thing we can do to help someone, help a client, be a better team, be a better leader, those types of things. So those one steps, that's just moving the ball 1 yard each day. That's how you win in this game, and that's what makes it so amazing. So I want to end on one last thing. Okay, Meaghan, I saw you, I think where I met you was on LinkedIn, but without meeting you directly. And you were really nervous because you were talking about your, gonna record your first video, and I think you're doing it live. I don't remember. Yeah. And you were do you remember your first post? And so part of the question was, what was the emotional journey of Sean Cannell says, you got to punch fear in the face. You got to go put yourself out there and create. But do you remember those first posts you were making? So if you're like watching or if you're listening in on the audience, like what is that moment that you had where you're thinking about, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a creator. I'm going to do it for my brand. I'm going to do it for my company. I'm going to do it for my passion or my cause. But man, like you've got to go put yourself out there. I think we're all a little nervous. Like even to this day, I get a little butterflies. But what was your journey in terms of like making that moment to put yourself out there, and what did it feel like, and how did that evolve?
So it was really weird, and I think it's still surreal to me that I actually did it, because I was so hesitant to do it in the first place. Like I have 3 kids. I'm married, so I have a family that I don't want to like talk about money, but when you have a family, money is important because you have to put food on the table. So when I started, I have another business called Ziemba Solutions, which is my writing services. So I started that first, believe it or not. And I told my husband, I'm like, you got a full-time job. I think we're pretty stable. Do you care if I try this out a little bit? And he's like, yeah, go for it. Well, then the pandemic hit and then he got laid off. So I was like, well, I need to get a full-time job now. So I was actually a pandemic hire for another manufacturing company. So I worked fully remote the first 6 months. And I went out to tacos and tequila with one of my good friends who's a mentor of mine. And I was telling him about Meaghan's. And I was like, I'm getting so frustrated because there's so many amazing women in this sector and they're not getting highlighted. Yeah. And it's bothering me. And I was like, I pitched this to the women group that I'm involved with, because there was a local women manufacturing group that I was involved with. They turned it down because they were like, it's too, like, it's segregating. It's leaving out the men, and we need the men supporters. And I'm like, but it's not leaving them out. It's just focusing more on women because we need that. So I really thought long and hard of the branding and what I wanted it to look like. And I always get goosebumps when I hear about the 1940s and Rosie the Riveters. I just think that's a cool time in our history, because women just decided to step up and help because men were going off to war, and they're like, we got this, we can do it. Because women tend to be more relational and community driven. Like they want to bring people together and help everybody progress forward.
For sure. I want to like pause you there for a second. I don't know if you know this. So we're here at Industrial Headquarters in Nashville, and we were very fortunate enough to be able to secure our headquarter location. It's in the Worthen packaging plant, manufacturing plant.
It's a cool place.
And it's a historic industrial building, and we loved it. Obviously, it's on brand. It's kind of who we are. And what it's known for is during the war effort, this plant was the primary employer of women.
That's awesome.
So as the men went away during the war effort, our Rosie the Riveters were here running the manufacturing plant.
That's awesome.
So this is literally a place that this is that historic place. That one of these places that's exactly what was happening.
That's awesome.
So isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like, so I just wanted to I didn't tell you that story yet, but it's like,
super
but
cool.
It's so true, and it is so inspiring.
Yeah, it's important too, because it opened up a lot of opportunities for women. So I really wanted to pay tribute to our history. And when I was sharing this information with my friend, we got on the topic of facing our fears. And I'm deathly afraid of heights. Like I can't stand them. And I went skydiving for one of my birthdays. And he was like, well, why did you go skydiving? Because he's afraid of heights too. And he actually took up mountain climbing instead. And I was like, okay, so when you get to the edge of something and you look over, it's not the fear of like falling, but it's the fear of like this voice in my head that's saying, just jump. Like, not to sound like suicidal or anything, because that wasn't it. It was just this urge to want to jump and see how the feeling was. With parachuting, when you skydive, you can actually jump because you have something that will catch you and you land. And it was the most amazing experience ever. And I want to do it again. And one of my friends is trying to get me to get certified so I can actually go by myself. But he said the same thing. He was like, you're on the edge of something. And he's like, if you fall, you got the tethers and all this stuff. And he's like, you won't get hurt. So he is like, well, why don't you just jump with Meaghan's and see what happens? He's like, if it fails, you have grit enough where you'll bounce back. Like, it's not a big deal. So I started Maven's, and really I wasn't expecting it to grow as fast as it did. So eventually what started happening was it was taking more time that I wanted to put effort towards than what I was doing for my career at this chemical etching company. So I finally reached out to my boss and I was like, hey, I really need to do this. I can't say no to it anymore. And my mentors told me, he's like, when you are ready to quit your full-time job to try this, he's like, it's just going to be a moment. It's just going to click and everything is going to feel right. And it's going to be scary as hell. But he's like, you're going to be fine with it and you're going to face your fear and you're just going to be like, I'm ready. And it did. It happened just like that. I was just like, I need to quit my job. And I told my husband, I'm like, can I quit my job? And he goes, absolutely do it. So I don't feel like I would be as successful if I didn't have the support of my family and my friends. And the groups that I'm a part of on LinkedIn have just been massively helpful and supportive. And they're like my own like cheerleaders as well too. Like we're all trying to do better for this sector. So I finally took the leap and it's stressful.
I saw the first post.
So stressful because it's so, but you know, a lot of my mentors have told me, they're like, if you're not scared every single day of doing this journey, then you're doing something wrong. Like you have to be scared. And I get it. Like I don't want to let anybody down, especially when it comes to kids. I do not want to let them down. So I am like scared every single day. My sleep patterns have changed quite significantly where I'm like waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, writing stuff down because I'm just overwhelmed with ideas and thoughts. And I was talking to my friend who encouraged me to do this. I was like, how do you handle the noise in your head now? Like my head is so full of noise because before I was constricted on what I had to focus on because I was always working for someone else. Now that I'm working for myself, I have more autonomy and freedom to be creative and have these ideas. So it's really stressful, but it's so fun. It's the great kind of stress and I love it and I wouldn't change it for the world and I would do it. The only thing that I would do differently is starting earlier. Like I would start it a lot sooner and not hesitate to do it. So that's the only thing I would do differently. But
I think you don't want to go through life saying, I wish I did or have regrets. So on that note, Meaghan and my good friend, if I was to buy you a gift for coming here and talking with me and visiting today, I would get you a polka dot shirt. Because I know you would grab a marker and you'd connect all the dots. Yeah. So that's you in a nutshell. So Meaghan, thanks for coming in and spending time with us. But before we leave, let everyone know how they can find you and connect. Follow, subscribe on every channel. There's your camera right there.
Please do.
Let everybody know.
So I'm mostly on LinkedIn and my email address and all my contact information is on there. You can also go to mavensofmanufacturing.com and there's a scheduling link on there so you can actually schedule some time with me. And then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm at 305 subscribers right now. They're all organic, so I'm super proud of that. I haven't paid for a single one of them. So if you can help me in that area, I'd appreciate it too. But my email is Meaghan@z-inksolutions.com. So email me, connect with me, shout out to me. I really love having conversations and learning from people. So just connect.
Thank you so much for what you do
James.
for manufacturing. You're so dear to our hearts, and thank you because you're making an impact, and I got a chance to see it, firsthand for sure. And like if you're watching and if you're listening, please follow your creators, follow Meaghan, like their content, boost the algorithm because it's so important. You're not just trying to get it in your feed, you're showing confidence in these topics. And we have to move beyond, it's not about the numbers, but it's about the engagement and sending signals. So I think every like, no matter who you're liking, whether you're subscribing to your shows or our show or wherever, you're doing that because you believe in the platform and you want to see this content. And I think our mandate together is to create content that people want to watch.
Yeah.
They want to listen to and hear these stories. So we'll be telling those stories with a number of the things that we do. Meaghan and I will probably cross paths together, create pretty soon.
Absolutely.
So on that note, I just want to thank you for coming in and really sharing your story. And with Meaghan here, I just hope you and the audience just learned one thing from Meaghan, this inspires you to make how you communicate, how you market, how you create, and the journey you take even better, so that you can make an impact. So on that note, thanks for joining the Industrial Strength Marketing Show. Please subscribe to Meaghan, to us, so that we can lift everybody up. So on that note, we will see you next time.